Facing challenges and overcoming setbacks is part of doing business. Whether you have the expertise to survive them or not could mean the difference between success or failure. Welcome to We Are Women, featuring revealing conversations that provide invaluable insights into the success secrets of female masterminds. A must listen for every entrepreneurial woman. Now here's your host, Janine Vosper.
Hi, Janine here. Welcome to this episode of the We Are Women podcast. Today, I have the amazing April Roberts with me. Now, April is a high-achieving former attorney and financial advisor with degrees from Vanderbilt and Notre Dame. Now, April understands the societal pressures facing women that often lead to, yep, you got it, that word, burnout. She hosts the podcast Vixen Voice, where she shares stories of GenX women that have shed the traditional definition of success to pursue their life's true passion. And those that have listened to me on any of the podcasts, you know that this is right up my alley, and we are going to have an amazing conversation. Welcome, April.
Oh, thanks, Janine. I know we're across the world from each other, but I do think we have a lot of similarities. So this is going to be fun.
It will be. And when we were chatting beforehand, I forgot to ask you what city you are in.
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, so kind of in the middle of the US.
I've been to the US quite a few times, and I haven't got to that part, but Nashville is definitely one of the places on my list. So I will hold that. I hold that, and it might be actually a space where we can actually catch up in person.
I'd love that.
Now, going from an attorney and financial advisor to what you're doing now, there had to be something that happened and to you possibly that made that shift, or you're aware of. Share your story, please, April.
Well, a couple of things. First, Janine, the reason I coach and consult female entrepreneurs now is I'm kind of built for change. I thrive on change. So I don't know that I'm someone who would have had the same career my entire life anyway. But that being said, honestly, what happened was life just happened. And, I believe in living life well, and many things are important in life. So sometimes things came up that were more important than what I was doing in my career. And so I pivoted to accommodate that. And, I just kind of view life as a journey. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird because I like to know where I'm going. I like to have something to look forward to, but I also like the unknown because a lot of times we can't even imagine the amazing things that are coming our way.
And that sort of resonates with me on so many levels. A couple of sentences. It is very much, and I don't think a lot of people realize that they can change, or they can adjust their lifestyle to suit what's important to them. And that's, when I'm working with clients, one of the first things I ask them is, what do you want your life to look like?
Yes, I love it.
And it is that question. And most people don't do it because they get on, that treadmill of what success looks like to them. And it doesn't make them happy.
And I find, especially with women, they get buried under the responsibility, right? They're so busy taking care of everyone. I can't tell you how many women I'm really, my new thing is just having conversations with women. And, some of them become clients, some of them it's just a great conversation. So be it via social media, etc. And I love to ask, what's your big goal for this year? And I also love to ask what their wins are. I would tell you right now, 8 out of 10 women cannot tell me what their big goals are. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your dream business or dream life look like? They can't answer that either. And honestly, Janine, it breaks my heart because I know, like you said, it's either you're stuck on that treadmill of getting to the next thing, or you're kind of buried under the responsibility. And the reason I focus on Gen X women is it's a time in life at this age where you start seeking for things deeper than just the surface level success, right? It's kind of like, okay, check that box. I'm a mom, check that box. I'm a wife, check that box. I've been successful in my career. And I think so many people start asking, what else is there? And sometimes they get lost in the what else.
And also that generation is the double responsibility of parents as
Yes.
well as children. And it just seems like this big overload, doesn't it? What they call the sandwich generation. And it causes what I find, it doesn't allow time for not just focus on self, but to think that there is a self.
Yes, yes. And that, when I'm working with my clients, I always, because I'm a very spiritual person, and most of us believe in something greater than ourselves. So, I believe in God, and I believe God has a purpose for us, and we're made the way we are, and we're his greatest creations. And so, when someone can't view themselves that they deserve something, it really breaks my heart. I'm just like,
Mm.
okay, let's forget about like you as a mom, you as a wife, you as a lawyer, like, who is the woman underneath all of that, and what does she want? Because I really think what we want are like our breadcrumbs to our purpose, right? Like
Mm.
what we're really supposed to be doing. And then, our generation was kind of socialized to feel guilty, like that was selfish. Like, I mean,
Well, I'm a baby boomer, so yeah, with ours is definitely
oh,
we're
yes, for
definitely
sure.
going, you are selfish if you aren't there home cooking the meal for the husband after you've done a day's work and organize the kids' homework and head off to school with the parent teacher interviews, and then you contact your
Yeah.
parents when they need you. Yeah, we the baby boomers handle that guilt really well.
No, I
Oh,
totally
well.
agree. And of course, you were our parents, so we got passed it down. So we
Oh
were
God!
held
Oh
that
yeah!
stuff.
Yes, and I always say to thank you. My mother's passed, but thank you, Mum, for handing that level of responsibility to me, and I'm sure I've done that to my sons as well.
I know. I always joke. I'm like, I'm a female oldest child Gen Xer. So, it took me years to peel off those layers of responsibility. I actually proactively did spiritual work to like
Right.
realize that I didn't have to be responsible for everyone. And, that's a little bit what happened. I remember one time in my financial firm, of course, I had hundreds of clients, I had a team. I owned my own private firm, and I remember a client, it was sad her husband had passed away, and I was like, I'll come over on Saturday because she really had no one. She also took care of her sister who was in a wheelchair, and then she had her brother-in-law, but he was not that helpful to her. And I was like, I'll come over and help you sort paperwork on Saturday. And I remember being there, and she said, April, are you gonna have kids? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. For me, it's important to have a happy relationship. And she goes, I don't really understand how you could have kids because you have all of us to take care of. And it kind of shocked me that people would think that, right? Like, okay, I can't have a life because I have hundreds of clients that I have to take care of, right?
Right. That's
Yeah.
an interesting perspective, isn't it? So, have you had children, April? I will ask that question.
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
so that was a
Yeah.
decision then.
I don't know if it was so much a decision. I will give you the 2-minute short version, but I will tell you if you ask this question in front of my 5-year-old nephew, my 8-year-old niece, and my 9-year-old nephew, they would get very offended and tell you that I did have children. So I am very, and then I have a set of 2 nieces and a nephew who are, gosh, they're 25, 26, and 27 now. So
Right.
I am a phenomenal aunt. We'll put
I
it that
I
way.
I think that's an amazing role to sit in because you can be, it's
Mhm.
I'm a bit like that with a best friend's daughter and
Yeah.
my niece as well. I'm the cool person that they can come and
Yes.
have a conversation with, and they're feeling that they can't talk to their mum. And having had sons, that's really nice having the daughters.
I love it. How old are your sons?
40 and 38. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
grandchildren. Yeah, I've got 5 grandchildren, and I got my granddaughters with the granddaughters. So, and again, I'm the cool grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a role. I'm allowed to have that role.
Well, it's so funny because I'm 48 and I'm a great aunt because my brother's a grandfather. So
Right.
my 26-year-old niece has 2 babies. So it's just funny. The world is so different now. But it's so nice we have so many generations.
And look, this is all part of, this with women. And I
Yeah.
ran a retreat just recently, and it was a personal branding and style retreat. I work very closely with a photographer and a stylist, and I help people pull their stories,
Love
their
it.
moments in time where they don't realize the priority of that moment and how it's enabled them to become the person that they are and have the skills that they have. And that's what I often see with women, is that not recognizing that they've been able to do something, and how is that relevant to the skills that they have now. Everyone's so busy, when you're applying for a position, that you put in a resume and your
Yeah.
education and who you've worked for, but not those soft skills that you've developed and created, and that you don't recognize. And I absolutely love doing that. It's that, pulling it apart and then letting them getting them to write it, and then editing it, and highlighting their beauty and their glory within themselves. But it is
Oh, I
something with
love
women
that.
that they don't recognize, isn't it? That
Mm.
we just get in and do it, and there's a role or a title, but as you were saying, who are they?
Yeah. And what's interesting, Janine, is if you study feminine energy, I think it's Allison Keys to the Kingdom, and there's a couple of different books. I might be butchering her name, but she's really studied men and women in depth. And I like how she writes about it because she writes it in story form. And she talks about how, a feminine energy is to receive and to rest. And in today's world, we women give, 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 and go, go, go. And it's no wonder that women are burning out left and right, because
Mm.
I can share with you, in the financial industry, for example, women in the United States made up 30% of the financial industry 11 years ago.
Okay.
Today, they make up 30%. Now, it's not that no new women are joining. So, my theory, I can't back this up, but I think that women in their 40s and 50s, like what we're talking about in 60s, they're getting sandwiched with children and parents. And, maybe they're at the bigger firms where they have to keep the traditional hours, and they're burning out. And
Mm.
also, they're having to operate in masculine energy all the time. And our masculine energy is valuable. I mean, every human being on earth, no matter what your gender or sex is, you have masculine and feminine energy, right? Or yin and yang, however you want to think about it. And so it's so interesting that women do have such a hard time receiving, and they have such a hard time resting. And these are like 2 feminine elements. So I find that really fascinating.
No, I find that fascinating too. So receiving and resting. I've never heard that. I'm going to look up that book. So Alison Keys is the author.
Yeah. And I'll look it up when we're done. Actually, let me see if I can pull up my Audibles and get the right name for you. But her books are fascinating. Really, really
It's such a
fascinating.
it is such an amazing aspect. And again, because my generation, the women
Oh,
stepped into those nurturing roles. So they became teachers and
yeah.
nurses and that sort of
Yes.
space where they were in a more uh, perceived as more nurturing role. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with women, being lawyers or financial,
Yep.
advisors, or stepping, or mechanics, or whatever it is. But it is that needing that balance, then, isn't it?
Mhm. It's totally about balance. By the way, the author's name is Alison Armstrong,
I'm
so I got confused. And the main book she's famous for is Keys to the Kingdom. Um, but she has a lot of stories. Yes, and honestly, Janine, I work with a lot of my clients because, all my clients are female entrepreneurs, so it is go go go, get stuff done a lot.
Mm.
And so what I've helped a lot of clients do is have a routine where they transition before they go home. And, I say go home, but today, right outside that door is my home. So I'm lucky that my office is downstairs and the rest of my house is above. So I can separate the energy. But, I had so many clients that were challenged because they found themselves working at home, their families on the other side of the door, and they're like, all day long, go, go, go. And then they would storm out the door and put on their mom hat and make dinner, and they're still in go mode. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times what we would do is figure out a routine they could do for like 10 or 20 minutes so they could like calm down, transition their energy, and then show up more present for their families. And it's interesting. This is one thing being an aunt has taught me. I'm sure you've seen this, like being a grandmother and an aunt is I was like, I mean, my young nieces and my young niece and nephews, like they just think I'm the best thing in the world. And I'm like, okay, what is it? So I started observing. It's because when I'm with them, I am 100% present, right? Because I'm usually visiting. I purposely don't work. I show up. I hear everything they say. I acknowledge everything they do. And, this is absolutely impossible if you're a mother because you can't 24/7 acknowledge. But, you can have dinner time where there's absolutely no other distractions and you're 100% present and hearing every word. Or, I just worked with a lawyer client of mine and she was like, I don't know if I can't not work at all at home at night. And I was like, how about this? Why don't you carve out 1 to 2 hours for dinner and playtime, like, or bedtime?
Yeah.
And like that's sacred. And then when your son goes to bed, you can get your computer back out. Like, how about we compromise? Because to her, the most important thing is being a mother. And so balancing all these things is really challenging.
Yes, and then as we mentioned, the guilt comes in as well as the exhaustion, the burnout, and all
Yes.
of that. It's that sense of I should. People should allow
Yeah.
themselves, don't they? The
Yes.
I love that idea of let's take time. So, what would you suggest people might do in that 10 minutes?
So again, it comes down to knowing yourself. Really pay attention to what gives you energy, what takes your energy. And, if you really pay attention, like I'm sitting in this chair. So whenever I do webinars, I know they just hopped off something, hopped on Zoom. It's like, ah, and I'm like, okay, let's sit in our chair, like feet flat on the ground. If you have shoes on, slip them off, right? Let's, take some deep breaths. I'm a big fan of box breathing, like breathing in for, hold for, out for, hold for, and like really just start connect to your body again. Like feel your feet on the ground, feel your bum in the chair, like just kind of lean back and let your body and chair support you. Because the problem is, so many people are up in their head all the time, and you have to bring yourself back into your body and back into your heart. And so if you do that, you're going to feel where you have tension, right? Like, are your shoulders in fight or flight? Is your stomach like nervous? Like, for women, we have so much wisdom in our body, and the more we connect with our body, the more it tells us. So at first, it's really challenging because if you haven't connected to your body, you don't know what to do to get yourself there, right? But I know for me, actually taking a little nap totally shifts my energy. So if I had to walk out the door and cook dinner, I'd probably set an alarm, lean back, and take a little 15-minute snooze sitting up in my chair. I had another client, she would light a candle and do some yoga or some stretches. Another thing that works for me is taking a walk right at 20 minutes. It's like I feel my hips open up and my body just decompresses. I can almost feel the tension like go out of me. Music is really beautiful. Just kind of anything to take a moment and be present
Mm.
before you have to go into that next role. Like really just be a human being and feel your humanity.
Yeah, no, I love all those tips. Definitely the taking a walk resonates with
Yes.
me. One of the things that I do when I walk, and I'm very observant to the beautiful surroundings. I'm very fortunate where I can walk
Right.
here, but I listen to fiction.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely can get out of the real world and listen to fiction, and it becomes just a really great space where I'm not having to learn anything or You know,
Yeah.
and you have to pay attention, because if you miss something in the book, whereas if you listen to nonfiction, if you miss something, it doesn't matter, it'll be repeated somewhere in the book. Whereas
Right.
fiction, and particularly if you're listening to a crime novel or something like that, that you've got to really pay attention to what you're
Yeah.
listening to. And I started listening to books. I was doing a lot of repping and traveling thousands of kilometers and outback Queensland and mining areas. And
Wow.
I started listening to books, and I was terrible at it to start with. I'd get somewhere and I would go, hang on, that's about an hour of the book I've missed, because you get out and distracted. It was a great lesson on how to listen well. And it actually helps me a lot now with what I do, because people say, when I'm doing stories or helping them with their pitch or whatever it is, they say, well, you've listened to me really well. That's me. And that's training through listening to
Yeah.
fiction. But it's my focus on something that's outside myself, if you get what I mean. That's for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I resonate in two ways. One, I remember one of my favorite days in this past year I was like, I'm just going to read a book. I'm going to sit on my balcony. It was a nice night. I was living in a high rise then and read. I was so happy that night just sitting there reading that fiction book, like with the, air blowing. It was like so beautiful. And I was like, oh, why don't I do this more? And the second thing is when you were talking about helping people reflect back about their soft skills and what they've learned. So
Mhm.
my ex-husband was Italian, so I moved to Italy for some time. Um, and the most challenging part was communication was always my forte. Well, now I live somewhere else that, everyone wants to speak English with me to practice, but it's like broken English or I'm speaking broken Italian. So that was extremely challenging for me. But what I ended up doing was teaching English, and I would go to Berlusconi's publishing house and teach courses to the employees there. And it was 8 hours of teaching English as a foreign language.
Mm.
And same thing, I had to listen all day long, and when I first started, I would come home, like, absolutely knackered, like,
Yeah.
exhausted, because most of us don't practice active listening.
Mm.
But then, when I came back to the US and fast forward and I became a financial advisor, my clients were like, "You always hear everything I say," and it was like a no-brainer that they did business with me
Yeah.
because of my listening skills. And now as a coach and a consultant, and a podcast host, it's critically important. So I love what you do because I think it's so important to look back at our story and see I never planned to be an English teacher in Milan. Like I had a law degree from Notre Dame. Like I couldn't get a job over there. That was my default job, right?
But,
Because I was going crazy as a glorified housewife, right? Like with
although
no children.
there's worse places to live than Milan,
I
by
know.
the
Well, I will
way.
tell you, I taught myself Italian cooking, so it was worth it. Like,
Nice.
but I never planned to do that. And I do think there's value in looking at your journey and seeing what you've picked up along the way. And then you realize, wow, all of this happened so I could be here in this moment doing this thing. And it's really so beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. It's I think listening is one of the most important skills that you can have. And I
Yes.
think it honors people when you do listen well to them, whatever that, whether it's through business or in life. And
Yeah.
but again, it's one skill, and there's so many skills that we acquire through
Mhm.
particularly, we're talking Gen X and putting my hand up as baby boomer as well. We've had a lot of experience. So there's
Yes.
a lot there of things that we have done, and just, coping with overwhelm, coping with the
Mhm.
stresses of life, and being able to have the resilience to move forward. I
Mhm.
don't think that sort of thing is appreciated enough either. We don't always want to be the action hero, I suppose, but we want to
Right.
be able to recognize that we are resilient, and there's
Yes.
what can we learn from that resilience.
Mhm. No, I agree. I love it. I mean, I can tell you the most memorable parts of my life were when there was a disaster. So for example, Hurricane Katrina, which is one of the worst hurricanes to hit the United States in the history of America, hit
Mm.
ground zero at my hometown, Biloxi, Mississippi, well, just to the left of us. And I was visiting my parents from Italy. Like, I'm not kidding. My ex-husband didn't know for 3 or 4 days if I was alive. Like, this is how bad the storm was, and we forget that there weren't cell towers then like we have now, right? Like, everything was out.
Mm.
And, long story short, I mean, it went on for 3 or 4 months. I didn't go back home, and then my ex-husband moved to the US so we could help my family. But we all sat around the dinner table. There were 21 of us living in my parents' house, like people that had lost their house, people, contractors, and we had a curfew. And every night we sat around, and my ex and I would cook dinner for 21 people. And we just had the best time. And that was, I mean, half the people there had just lost everything they owned. And it really is amazing how we human beings can bounce back and make the most of things. And it shows us maybe some of these things that we prioritize, maybe they're not as important as we think, right?
Mhm.
So no, I completely agree with you. When you think back, like some of your most challenging times become the most beautiful, right?
And yeah, and what I've thought of this is it's the our generation's fault is that we are not allowing our children to build that same level of resilience because there's too
Yes.
much protection. It's
Yes.
and I'm seeing that everywhere where it's just a massive struggle for the teens and the early 20s because
Mhm.
they you can't go out and play outside because of stranger danger. You can't, there's always this can't do this in this protective mode. And
Yeah.
rather than, I'm an advocate of, okay, this is happening. What can you do with it? Maybe there's this particular incident, you have to just toughen up and deal with it. It's a challenge. It's like you said,
Yeah.
you're cooking meal for 21 people. There was no alternative to do anything else. You could have sat in the corner and sucked your thumb and
Mhm.
or you move on. And it's seeing that people with that, emotional intelligence to go, okay, we're dealing with a challenge here. And it's
Yeah,
not
I like
nice, it's
that.
not pretty, but we have to deal with it and move on and not be protected from it all the time.
No, I agree. And what I'm thinking about as we talk is how much life has changed. And I mean, every generation can say this as you get to a certain point. But like, at my mastermind, we do a morning coffee every Wednesday. And this morning, the topic was coming up. Most of the women have children, they're home for the summer, and they were sharing grievances about feeding their kids lunch every day and like having to adjust to that, right? And how one kid likes this and one kid doesn't eat this. And I was like, yeah, when I was home for the summer, my mom was like, "Come home when it's dark or you're hungry. Have fun." Like that's what I remember, right? It was
Yeah,
literally like my brother and I running rampant like out in the woods, and it was
yeah,
basically like, "Oh, if you're hungry if the sun goes down, you come home." And we were like, "Okay,
yeah,
bye."
yeah.
And it's so crazy how different it is.
And it was the same with myself and with my sons as well. It was
Yeah.
I'm sure we've got children. Just be home before it's dark. And it is, and it's that what can I make my children for lunch? Well, maybe they can make it themselves, It's
Well, and the interesting thing was that was the decision they came up with. Like they were all
right.
sharing ways they had kind of set up to make their children, self-sufficient to a
Yeah.
certain degree. And so it was really cool. And I don't have
Love it.
kids, so I'm by no means judging this conversation.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
sure I would be frustrated as well. But yeah, I just kind of sat back and let them like chat. And that was like kind of what they collectively came up with. Like, okay, let's have things where the kids can really self-serve themselves and like start to learn to take care of themselves. But it was
I
really interesting.
yeah, I have the 8-year-old and 10-year-old for a week. The winter holidays are coming up in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. And the Miss 8-year-old is fussy. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is to get them to write the menus out for the week. And that way, and
I like
and
it.
to cook it most of the time also, or, to assist them to do whatever they're doing. But that way they'll be happy with the meals that they're going to get. And
Yeah, they
yeah,
take ownership and it's
yeah,
fun.
absolutely. And it saves that frustration for me going, oh, they don't eat this,
I'm laughing because my nephew, he's now 9, but I think he was like 6 or 7, and he was staying with me. And I live like in the city in Houston. So, when they came, I just order Uber Eats or have something delivered because I knew I wouldn't have the right food. And I
Yeah.
was like, what do you want? He was like, I'm feeling like steak. So I was ordering from this restaurant and all they had was filet mignon. So he got filet mignon. And then he was like, this steak is really good, Aunt April. And then we were out to dinner another night with my sister, and she was like, "What do you want, Noah?" And he was like, "Well, I want a filet. That's what I had." And so now we laugh. She's like, "What are you doing with my children?" And I'm like, "Whatever they want when they're at Aunt April's."
Absolutely.
To this day, he's like, "I want a filet."
Oh, I love that story. That's awesome. Yes, yeah. If we were doing one night, it would be whatever. Let's do
Yeah.
takeaway. But we've got the whole week, and I know it's frustrating. Though I'm with those women, but I'm getting the kids to decide what they, and the 10-year-old will decide normal healthy foods. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it is. You're working with more that entrepreneur space now rather than women it's still in corporate or women who are in corporate who want to become get into their own business and transition. Is that part of it? Are you seeing people who are really struggling is probably what I'm asking.
Yes, I work with both. So I actually have 3 tiers to my program. So the first one is for like aspiring part-time and startup entrepreneurs. So
Mhm.
really helping them get to 6 figures as quickly as they can through daily habits and, goal setting. Kind of a lot of things that new business owners struggle with,
Yeah.
and helping them to understand that and getting good habits in place and also taking care of themselves. And so, yes, I have a lot of women join that who are still in corporate. They have their side gig. And as we know, if you're doing well in corporate, your side gig is probably not going to equate. So at some point, there's a leap of faith where you have to say, okay, I have enough momentum
Mhm.
over here that I feel comfortable leaving the stability and I can grow it. So I really help women kind of with that gap. And then the next level are my female entrepreneurs already doing 6 or multiple 6 figures. And we have a mastermind where we come together and set quarterly goals, hold each other accountable, cheer each other on, and of course, learn other things. And then we're launching a jet setter mastermind, which is the next tier. So if they're running 7 or 8 figure businesses, because then it's a lot about leadership, visionary, running the teams, etc. And really, they just are looking for other women at the same level to
Mhm.
interact with. So that's more of a true mastermind where I'm not going to be doing as much coaching. Maybe if they have certain problems, I'll come in and do some consulting work. So that's really fun. And I was surprised. I really enjoy the first tier program. Like, I really love that program. And I really, I love it when I had 2 women in my last class who were able to like leave their corporate job. One left completely, and one went down to 4 days a week with the understanding with her company that she would be exiting out and going full time in her side business.
Mhm.
So that's really interesting.
And that's very rewarding as a coach to see people
Yes.
be able to, and that's part of it, achieve what their dreams are.
Mhm.
It's yeah, that's what I find it is, and just even having the confidence and belief in themselves to go, okay, I can
Yes.
do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because as I'm sure you've realized, Janine, like there's so much personal growth and entrepreneurship. And what I find interesting is new entrepreneurs don't understand that. Like they don't understand the level of self reflection that's in self-growth, that's involved in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And so especially, most of the women I'm working with have children, they're married or they have a partner, they're 40 something, they've already been successful. So then to have that struggle again and that second like kind of rebirth, it really does take a little bit. And it's nice to have a group to say, it's okay. It happened to me too,
Yeah.
right? Like you're going to be good.
Yeah, and that's an important factor because when you're in business by yourself, it's going to be very lonely space. I run a women's mastermind,
Yes.
which is a monthly get together. We actually in the same
Love
space
it.
as well, and
Yeah.
and just that support and other people in the room. It's the brain trust is there, but it's also, if somebody is finding something a bit difficult, it's great to have
Yeah.
that. What did you do? How did you get through that? How did you deal with that? Mm,
Yeah, I
yes.
totally agree. We get together in person once a quarter for the mastermind, and then we have virtual meetings, short meetings weekly, and once a month, longer meetings. So it's fun because we're all over the US. So it's
Mm.
really fun when we get together for our quarterly retreats. I think you and I should combine our masterminds. We should have one big retreat.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. I'm up for
We'll come to
traveling
you
again
one time.
now.
You can come to the US one time.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said with that other one that I've just come back from, that's in the Whitsundays, which is the beautiful beaches, the
Oh,
Great
yeah.
Barrier Reef in northern Queensland. So even though it's a winter day, it's 24 degrees Celsius, which is 80 degrees or something. It's just glorious. Sun's out, and we
Beautiful.
take the ladies on a sunset cruise as well one of the evenings, and that's what that's part of when you were speaking before. This retreat, even though it's to achieve something and take home it, and it's tax deductible, it's also a space where they could play at being women and do makeup and
Yes.
hair, the things that, even, that's the other two ladies, the makeup and the photographer, then the stylist, they love being in that space, that's just their space. It's not necessarily mine to sort of throw the makeup on, but to have someone do that for me and then get photographed and look amazing, it's a nice space to play in, and it's that balance, isn't it, of
Mm.
what we were talking about, is being in that feminine space, this feminine
Yeah.
actions, and they were nurturing, and we finish it with, everyone gives each other a gift of what you brought to me for the end of the retreat, and
Oh, that's
it's,
beautiful.
yeah, it really is, but it's not something that we don't allow enough of, I think, and that's why it seems so special when it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. At our last one, I actually got a large house. We were in Sedona, Arizona, and we stayed together, and it had like a heated hot tub and a heated pool. A lot of times, especially when it was so nice because no one had vanity. It was just like, okay, are we going to get our swimsuits on and getting in the hot tub because it was chilly, right? Out in the desert. And, it was just so fun, like to have like that true female friendship and bonding that we
Mm,
don't really get in today's world because, here you are being incredibly vulnerable about your business in front of this group of women and
mm,
and of course, inevitably personal things come up because you're trying to balance like, oh, my husband won't help me do X, Y, and Z, and I have this to do all day. And then I come home. So that comes into the conversation.
mm,
And I really love watching the new women who come like open up to that. And, a lot of times there's emotion only because they've been holding in so tight and they'll be like, I never cry. What's going on? Why am I crying? And I'm talking about business, but it's because they finally have that safe space where they can
yeah.
just be, right? And that's so important to create that space.
Yeah, I totally agree. No, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I don't mind travel. What you're saying, and the reason I'm sort of stumbling over some words is because what you're saying, it just is resonating so much. But it is, and I keep coming back to the retreat only because I've just got home from it a day ago,
Yeah.
and there was tears when people are reading their stories because they're going, is this me? They don't see that within themselves. And, some of them had been through some massive struggles, and just before they went away also, and things that would have really crippled others, that one lady I wrote that she rose from the ashes like a phoenix from it. And that was a real moment for her, because she knew she was pushing through, but she also then recognized what I'd seen in her was his rebirth. And it was, there were a few tears, tissue boxes out, which was really nice as well. So
I love that, and it's such a beautiful gift. Oh yeah, I need to have you come over and work with the women in our mastermind. We're gonna make this happen. No, I was coaching a client today, and I knew she was really struggling, so I offered her, like, I was like, you know what, I'll just give you another hour of coaching. Let's just and I was like, well, what do you really want? And she said, I've never, and she's 40, I've never been allowed to want something, so I don't even know how to want. That's what she told
wow.
me. And I was like, oh, okay. Nope. It's time for you to want things. Like, you're going to start with something small, but what do you want? And I think, the story you're giving women is such a beautiful gift, like this repackaging of their life. And I think to be able to create a space where they can want again is so important too.
Yeah, I love that. Isn't that, and that's the thing, is you'd be like me. You're hearing that
Mhm.
I've never wanted before, or you hear something else in a story and it just goes, whoa, because when you're not in that space, you don't recognize it. You don't recognize the
Yes.
pain or the challenge it is for people to be in that space. But to not never known to be able to want, that's powerful, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is it's, and I think I said this before, a lot of people don't know that they don't, I haven't said this, they don't know what they don't know, but they don't know
Hmm.
that what is possible for them. It's
Right.
not just knowledge. I don't know what I don't know. People don't know what is possible if they just choose to think in a different way than they're choosing to think
Yeah.
now, or
Yeah.
behave, or
Well,
goal set, or whatever it might be.
I agree. And you and I were talking about time management before hopping on. You were sharing with me like your calendar, because we're very much alike. We like colorful calendars. Like, you see the artwork behind me. Like, I like color. I want to look at my
Yeah,
calendar and like
yeah.
feel happy. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. And one thing, all my clients, I'm like, okay, I need a color for joy. When you do your color coding, what's your color for joy? And so it's so fun to see the colors they pick. And then I'm like, okay, your first thing is once a week, like when you're planning your week, if there's, so my color's pink. If there's no pink on my calendar, I'm going to schedule some pink time, because like if I have a week without pink time, I'm probably verging on burnout. Like, that's how I reset and refresh myself. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's going to have a walk with a girlfriend. Sometimes it's going to a fun event. Sometimes it's like watching a movie on Netflix or reading a book, because I need that alone time. I mean, actually, we just had a holiday weekend in the US, and I was like, Sunday, it was my goal not to get out of my pajamas. And I was like, I'm just not going to get out of my pajamas. And then I think it was late morning, early afternoon. I don't know. I go, I'm kind of cold. I want to take a bath. And like, to get to take a bath in the middle of the day, I was like, this is so fun.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm just sitting here staring at the sky because I have a little window right there. And I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, I never get to do this. So, I mean, everyone thinks, oh, I have to book a whole day at the spa to have joy, but you don't. It's just that luxury of something you don't normally get to do, right? It can be very small.
No, yeah, I love that. And it's that I think the important factor there for anyone listening is you did that without any guilt.
Oh, no. Guilt is a wasted emotion. I've
Eh,
spent many years extricating it from my life. So, yes,
But a lot
I
of people
agree.
will, oh, I can't go and read a book, or I can't go and and take the time out to have the bath, or, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to go and exercise. I don't. And it's all of these other, and if I do, then I should be doing this. So then that responsibility and that guilt comes in, rather than going, I'm going to take a bath.
Yeah. Well, and it's what you shared, Janine. It's a switch in mindset, right? So I coach a lot on money mindset. I do a 3-day own your worth challenge every month. And women come in and in 3 days they change. And then of course some become clients and some, that's fine. That's all the impact they needed. But one thing I like is let's know your hourly rate, right? And when women find their hourly rate, 80% of them are shocked. Like they'll gasp out loud, right? Like, this is all I'm making per hour. So the goal is to obviously get your hourly rate up through different ways of leveraging, but also remember you get paid to rest. I'm actually kind of grateful that I grew up in male dominated industries that were successful, because we had all these speakers come in and talk to us. And, I was trained okay, I should operate like a high performance athlete, for better or worse. In the financial field, most people speaking to us were athletes, right? And I grew up loving, US football and different things. And so it's okay, I get paid to rest as well. So I've kind of always been trained that way, and I don't have children and I'm single now. So, I kind of have that luxury, although I do have aging parents. I do have lots of family. I am the person in the family everyone comes to. So, there are other responsibilities, but really, if you think I get paid to rest and reset, because really most women want to show up their best for others. And if your cup isn't full, you're not giving from a full cup, right? So if you don't take that time just to do what you want, how are you going to be the mom you want? How are you going to show up as the partner you want? How are you going to show up as the boss you want, or to your clients? And so if you change your mindset and say, hey, I owe it to myself and everyone else to rest and fill my cup, then it changes. And that's when the guilt goes away and the negative emotions and the negative self-talk and all of this that humanity seems to be addicted to right now. We have to realize it's dopamine. You are addicted to dopamine. And so you have to break these habits and these cycles of the negative speak and the negative thinking. And you can do it, right? The positive thing is you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That addiction to dopamine is that success at whatever expense it is to my health or my life or the people around me, and it's going back to your values, isn't it? What are the most important values, and are you living your life true to those values? And if you're not, then it's incongruent, and you're going to have distress, which then causes disorder, and then causes dis-ease in your body.
Yes. Yes. And I can tell you, since I eradicated my negative thinking, guilt, etc., I have not taken any form of pharmaceutical since October 2021, not a headache pill, not an allergy pill. And I am exceptionally healthy. And, I'm perimenopausal. I put on weight. I'm not excited about that. So I'm not saying, but I don't get sick. And it has to do with what you're talking about. I don't go down that funnel, right? And so I just share that so that, if you're struggling with illness or allergies or things, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And usually it's starting by doing small things like taking a bath in the middle of the day. It's not this huge thing you have to do. It's just doing what you want sometimes when you want to do it. It really can be that simple.
Definitely. And one of the things I know that you very much into is allocating the time, as you said, the peak moments. I have to tell you, every year, when I was in a GM role so you call it VP role for a multi-million-dollar company for 20 years.
Yep.
And I leveraged myself out of it into a 5-day fortnight. And then that was a catalyst, because I had my business going on the background.
Oh my goodness. You weren't busy at all.
Yeah, no, raising children at the same time. But the thing was, I wasn't prepared to leave fully because of the income, and then trust yourself. And then the universe, God, whatever anyone's belief is, had a different thought about that. And they brought somebody into the business that was the catalyst to go, I don't need this, I'm out of here. And sometimes, and I often say this, sometimes to make choices, we either get hit with a feather or a brick or a truck. And I prefer the feather.
So I call it the 2x4 moment. So
Yeah.
yes, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I always did, and the point I wanted to bring up when I was in that role, is on my desktop at work, I do it the same thing here at home, but I would have a photo of the next place I was traveling to. So I had the opportunity to travel to about 30 countries, and each year would be somewhere different. So I'd always have that image of that next adventure. And as soon as I bought the tickets, it was like I'd already done it. So I would then put the next one up. But the first thing I do every year, and I tell this to clients, is to put your holidays in your calendar, and that's it. Even if you can only do it as a long weekend once a month, whatever that looks like. But the first thing is to put the holidays in, because you'll get to the end of the year and you'll go, I never, ever got to have a single holiday. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also I love what you're doing, because what I like to emphasize is there's seasons of your life. So in my business, we're starting to automate some marketing. We were launching a new program. There were just a couple of projects, and we really wanted to get them done end of May, beginning of June. So I kind of knew it was like a head down. Okay, I need to grind it out in work time. And I would try to find those moments in the day. But I can tell you exactly the day it all stops, which is June 14th. I don't know when this is going to air. And so, like, I literally have at the top of my calendar how long each day is before that. And then I say, oh, okay, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. Cool. I can make it till then. No big deal. Like, I'll just do this and do what I can in the meantime. So I think sometimes when you're in it, it's so easy to say, oh my gosh, this is never going to end. And I love how you had your next place you were traveling, or like kind of what's that compelling vision of the future that you're like, okay, I got the energy. I can do this. I'm good.
Yes, definitely. And I left there with no holidays and no longs. We have 4 weeks holiday here in Australia, paid for, and we have 10 weeks long service for every 10 years service. So I had a lot of long service and a lot of holidays. I had nothing left, like nothing.
I love it.
I'd been taking it all the way along. So yeah. We have got so much to talk about, and I just love this conversation. I always finish with 3 takeaway points, April, and I just want you to share what you think would be the conversation's gone everywhere. So
that's okay.
Whatever you think might be really valuable takeaway points for the listeners.
Awesome. Well, one is, if you are not the architect of your calendar, you really should be. Like, have a grasp on what your ideal calendar looks like, and know that there are seasons, like for me right now, that I'm not going to be on my ideal calendar, right? But I know the week that, okay, I get to go to water aerobics Friday morning. Like, that's my goal. I can't do it right now, but like I get to do it in the morning, not in the evening, right? So really being architect of your calendar, and not just in your to-do list, but as we shared, make it beautiful, make it something joyful. And I color code based on like how much energy something takes from me, right? So the things that I need the most energy are where I am the person that has to do that, kind of like hosting my podcast. So tomorrow I record podcast all day long. I'm not doing anything else because all my energy needs to go there. So use your calendar to manage your time and your energy. Another tip is, to boost your confidence and know you're worth it and you're doing a good job, take time to celebrate your wins. And I really like to break this up into, I call it 6 minutes a day to change your life. So what if when you first woke up, you set the alarm on your phone for 2 minutes and you just sat there and said everything you're grateful for, or you wrote for 2 minutes everything you're grateful for, or you spoke to your partner and shared, right? Or your kids or someone. And then what if at noon you did the same thing and you reflected on the morning and you just wrote down everything that went well, right? Everything you won at. And then what if you did the same thing at the end of the day or before going to bed? I promise in 2 weeks, you will be a manically happy person because you're focusing on all the good in your life, right? And it's just 6 minutes a day. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And then my favorite tip we talked about already is have a color for joy on your calendar and make sure you have at least one experience of pure joy each week. And I can tell you that my clients have taken to this so much that I had a client who her son went away to college, her father was passing away, she's starting a new company, just kind of like that GenX crunch we talked about. It was really, she's grieving. And she said, April, I just have joy on my calendar every day. That's the way I'm going to make it through this. And so, just find these little building blocks that you can build on, and you just start small, one time a week. And it really makes a difference and reminds you to like stop and enjoy life. And when you enjoy life, you show up so much better as a business owner, so much better as a family member, and so much better as a human being. So,
Yeah,
those would be my 3 takeaways.
yeah, they're brilliant. Thank you. There's so much, to just enjoy life. My moment of joy on Saturday is a friend of mine's just had a new baby, and that's going to be my moment of joy. My grandchildren are older than that now, and just to nurse a new baby is, yeah, for me, just a really joyful moment too. And she was born on my birthday, which was the 11th of May, that's
why I like you so much. I'm the 1st of May. So
it's Victorians. I wonder. Yeah, what the thought with the little Jada is that it's 65 years difference between her birth and mine, and that's just amazing. Like, it's such a different world that she's coming into and everything. But yeah, it's my
so
little
beautiful
twinny. Which is awesome. How can people get in touch with you, April?
Oh, that's awesome. So my company's Vixen Gathering, Vixen, and you can find us at Vixen Gathering on those social media. You can find me on YouTube that way. And I also have a Facebook group, Abundant Business Women, so you can Google that. And I actually go live with another coach every Friday. We do complimentary coaching. And we're currently building up our own community, so we'll be moving that there. But that's the best way to really get in touch. And I think, Janine, you have a link where we offer them, or I'll get you one sometime if they want to pop on my calendar and have a little chat about something.
Okay.
But if not, find me on YouTube or in Abundant Business Women. That's where you can get really actually complimentary coaching, kind of kick the tires and see if you want to talk to me more. And of course, listen to the Vixen Voice and watch for Janine starring soon.
I know, we were just chatting about that beforehand. I went, oh, this will be so good. And I think after this conversation, we could go anywhere with it. Thank you so much, April. All the contact details will be in the show notes and wherever anyone's listening or watching this when it goes live. So thank you so much again for sharing your valuable insights and a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you, Janine. Have a good one.
You're welcome. And that's another episode of the We Are Women podcast. Remember that you can always book in a conversation by going to JanineVosper.com and just running some ideas by me. If I am not the right person for you, I have so many people that I've met from all around the world, amazing women who may possibly be the ones that will assist you. But you need to have that conversation first. I look forward to you joining me next time on the next episode of the We Are Women podcast. Bye-bye for now.
So, do you feel stuck in a rut in business? Visit speechperfect.com.au and download Janine's free ebook to avoid the 5 most common stumbling blocks women face in business. It's jam-packed, full of tips to overcome the barriers that could be holding you back from the success that you dream your business will be. We would love you to leave a review of today's episode and share this podcast with other women in need of entrepreneurial inspiration. Subscribe to the next episode now and join the We Are Women community.